Goodbye, 76er. It was not nice knowing you.
One garage, one market. Two garage.
One enemy remaining.
Dumbass. I just got 3 people. I lag. So those were some pretty violent clips you just watched. But what I'd like to know is, would people say that after watching these clips, they feel more aggressive? The question I'd like to ask everybody is, does media violence have an effect on us? One perspective is that media violence does influence us. A 1973 study found that boys aged 5 to 14 who had a history of high exposure to media violence were not as aroused or excited by a film portraying high levels of violence. Conversely, boys the same age who did not have a history of high media violence had a significantly higher arousal to the same violent film. This study portrays the effects that violence in the media can desensitize those who view it for prolonged periods of time. These are the tables from the study previously mentioned. Table 2 displaying the low exposure response, the low response from boys in the high exposure condition watching the violent film, and the much larger response from boys in the low exposure condition watching the violent film. Table 3 exhibits similar results using blood volume instead of skin responses. Another perspective is that violence in the media has little to no effect, or perhaps has the opposite expected effect on individuals. A 2023 study had participants play a violent video game, Doom 2 to be specific, both the original and a modified version, in order to see if the game has any effect on the participants after. The study found that those who had a belief that they were immune to the effects of violent video games had no large change in their aggression. They were slightly less aggressive. Those who believed they were vulnerable to violence in the media were significantly less aggressive after playing a violent video game. So it's possible, that it influences in a good way. Maybe we are more conscious of the media we consume afterwards. Here are the figures for the study mentioned. The first figure displaying the results for both violent and non-violent conditions, along with those who had an immunity and vulnerability beliefs and their perceived levels of violence after playing each game condition. The second figure displays the results of a competition to measure trait behavioral aggression, with noise blasts being the punishment the participant inflicted upon an imaginary opponent. This displays that people who believe they are immune have naturally higher behavioral aggression, trait behavioral aggression. Another perspective is that violence research is just convoluted. Another study found that over the last 25 years of research on violent video games and media, there have been issues in consistent results and an overall reduction in credibility for empirical research for that topic. They also stated the process of research itself needs to be more open-ended, have less unambiguous claims, and become more conservative to improve accuracy. And here's a quote from that study. We advocate a critical debate in which claims about effects of violence in digital games are made and revoked based only on existing scientific evidence. Transitioning from rigid ideology to something that is perhaps more conclusive, but less conclusive, but more sophisticated, will do much to restore the credibility of this field. And here are the questions I want to ask. There are many perspectives on this. What are yours? As time progresses, so does the capabilities to portray violence more accurately and viscerally. Is there a point which the ability to distinguish reality from a video game becomes impossible? Would violence at that point have a measurable effect on people? And does the nature of violence influence people? Is there such a thing as too much violence or senseless violence? And that concludes my presentation video. Future Ahas, please ask questions or take questions, what have you. Thank you for watching. Here are my references.